Hey guys, it's Penguin here, and welcome back to another gold making video. In today's video, we're going to be doing a Q&A. A few days ago, I asked you guys in the Discord as well as the YouTube community page to leave some questions down below that you guys would like to have answered in an upcoming video, and I have just got back from vacation just a few hours ago, so I decided to, this is perfect time to answer these questions. So we have about 12 of them today, so feel free to skip around in this video if there's certain questions that you are wondering about, but we're going to be talking about just general gold making stuff, WoW stuff, channel stuff, basically anything related with the channel and of course World of Warcraft. So hopefully you enjoy this video and I will not, keep you waiting. And of course, if you're somebody who wants to be featured in the next Q&A, I want to start doing these kind of on a monthly basis to just give, kind of just a general talk or update every few weeks. So feel free to leave questions, just make sure it says like Q&A question in the comments down below for next video, or feel free to join the Discord, and I always at people whenever I'm asking or looking for questions. But thank you guys so much, and here we go. So just starting out, the first sort of questions that we're going to be going over is kind of just the normal type of gold making questions that we get and that we have gotten for this video. And of course, before we get started, I just want to apologize in advance for any sort of mispronunciation from these names. I am really bad at pronunciation, so I apologize in advance. But the first question we have is from Austin, and he asks, what are your recommendations for professions for somebody who doesn't play alts on a high pop server? So, I feel like I say this a lot, but professions, and especially, the perfect professions, is very dependent on your server. For example, enchanting does really well on my server. However, if I recommend enchanting to everybody, somebody gets enchanting and it's all negative on your server, no longer is it the best profession. So definitely do some research. My recommendation would be for whatever profession you're interested in, look up the website The Gadgets and Times. I've talked about it before, but it basically gives you that TSM profession window, but on a website, and it lists out potential profit. So you don't have to spend the gold, leveling a profession just to realize that it's unprofitable. So I highly recommend checking out that website, of course. Now, in terms of somebody who doesn't have alts, you're very limited to only 2 professions. I will say make sure you grab cooking, because cooking it's a secondary profession, so it does not take up one of your main slots, and that's just some free gold right there, of course, if it's profitable. And I would say, I'm pretty biased towards kind of the armor professions just because of the variety that you have. So I would definitely look into leatherworking, because not only do you have the armor pieces, but you have the mount equipment, you have drums, you have armor kits, all these sort of items. Alchemy is always a great profession, as long as it's profitable, of course, but alchemy can be very good on a high pop server because there's normally higher demand. If alchemy is not very good, you can possibly look into enchanting. Enchanting you can't AFK craft, but you will get a ton of sales normally with that high demand. But yeah, I would just look into maybe leatherworking, alchemy, enchanting, and kind of see how it goes from there, but don't forget cooking. Moving on, we have another question, which I'm sorry, I'm not going to try to pronounce your name, but they ask how to deal with constantly being undercutted within, 1 to 2 minutes after posting. So, sadly, the thing is that you can't really stop the person from undercutting, right? Like that is somebody who is on their account clicking that cancel scan button, and the issue is that you just can't stop them from physically doing that. So really, the only way to deal with somebody constantly cancel scanning is to compete with them. Which, is really kind of a sad answer, because I know most people do not like cancel scanning. It's the worst part about gold making. But at the end of the day, you don't really have to do it. Of course, the more that you do it, the more sales you're going to get. But if it's ruining your gold making experience, just leave it alone, go do what you want to do, come back after a little bit when you have some motivation, etc. I mean, if you think about it, if you're thinking in your head like, oh my goodness, this person is constantly cancel scanning, he's always posting after me, what the heck? That person is probably thinking that exact same thing about you. And really, it's never going to stop until one of you either give up, go do something else, take a break, etc. So if you really want to deal with it, like you can try to compete, outbeat him in cancel scanning, but if it's just too tedious, he's not giving up, whatever reason, feel free to just leave, come back later, do what you gotta do, don't get burnt out over cancel scanning. Moving on, we have a third question from, is it Alcazar? I apologize, but he says, I make most of my gold on a high pop server. I want to create some alts on a medium/low pop. What do I need to look out for or focus on? Should I operate as I do on the full pop? Or, focus more on gathering? So I would say, especially if you're going into a new server, in general, regardless of population, with no gold, because I'm assuming that you are going to be leveling a character there or starting from scratch. Of course, if you're transferring and you already have some gold, this won't apply to you. But if you're starting fresh, I would always recommend grabbing yourself mining and herbalism. The reason for that is if you're currently leveling, you can gather, gain some passive gold as you're leveling. And so that will help you whenever you can transition to that to that crafting phase whenever you have some income. Also, let's say you just boost a character or you still transfer a character but you don't have a ton of actual gold that you sent over. Gathering will let you, gain some income, whether that's 20k, 40k, 50k, and then all of a sudden you can drop that gathering and pick up your crafting. So I would say in end game, you're going to want to operate it the same as that high pop server. Your end goal, assuming you're getting into crafting, is to get all 8 crafting professions up and running. But in order to do that, I would focus on gathering to give yourself a little bit of income. In terms of what to look out for, if there's a certain profession that you're going to want to get into, look up on the Undermine Journal, whatever your server you're interested in, check on prices, check on, possible deals, stuff like that. So for example, let's say you want to do inscription, maybe you check out the missive prices versus the Death Blossom price or the Nightshade price. Or if you're looking into potions for alchemy, look up the spectral potion price and kind of compare that to the marrow root price, etc. You can use a spreadsheet to figure out, or simply go to that Gadget Sand Times website, check potential profits. But I would say, you generally should operate a high pop server like you do any other server if you're crafting, but I would focus on gathering at the start to give you some initial income because it'll just help jumpstart you into, your full operation. Moving on, we have another question by Nabil, who asks, I stopped playing for 4 months and came back now. Is your old videos not outdated? Can I still follow your Google Sheets and everything? So, a broad answer is yes. You can still follow the Google Sheets, and the old videos are not outdated. Now, of course, this does come with some exceptions. For example, if you go to my channel right now and go to the playlist, there is a playlist called, I believe it's the Shadowlands, profession breakdowns or something like that, and that is a full breakdown of every single Shadowlands profession, making gold with the simple trainer recipes. So something like that, as trainer recipes have basically not changed since the start of Shadowlands, is going to be perfect. It's not outdated at all. Maybe my sales have changed slightly, but that's still very decent knowledge. Now, of course, if you go back and look at some of my older videos, you do have to be careful of the time period. For example, if I'm talking about legendaries and selling legendaries for 100 to 200k a piece, that of course is no longer relevant. Also, if I talk about, I made a video right before 9.1 in Korthia about Korthite crystals and the estimated profit from them. Of course, we're in 9.2. Korthite crystals are no longer in demand, so that video is quite, out of date. So, in general, the sheets, everything is good to go. Most videos are fine, but be careful for some of those, time period pieces. Then our last kind of full gold making advice question we have comes from, I believe, Hazard Gaming. I apologize if that is wrong, but they ask any plans on doing a new player type of series. Currently been watching any of those I can, planning on coming back, but haven't played since Wrath, etc. And he also asks, any good combinations of professions, stuff like that. So, without giving away too much, yes, kind of in a broad sense, I am working on a newer player type of series. It kind of depends on what you mean of series. It's going to be a video about new players, etc. And I'm not exactly sure when it's going to come out, but it is currently in the progress. I can definitely say that. But I will say, if you are somebody who is coming back, I do have a few videos on my channel regarding how to play, for free, or how to buy Dragonflight for free, and that, covers the very, very basics of just starting to make gold. So I would recommend checking out those videos. I would say they're still up to date, if you're looking for some very, very beginner stuff. But in terms of kind of a series where I go through everything myself, one may be coming, soon. And when it comes down to combos, it's pretty much personal preference. I mean, if you want to try to optimize things, getting a druid for your gathering, so for, mining, herbalism, and skinning, putting those 3 on a druid, so technically you would need 2 druids because of the movement speed abilities, is really, really good. I would recommend getting a goblin for the reputation discounts for cheaper vendor materials, but, the class or the profession doesn't really matter in that sense. If you're Horde, then you have some options as well. You can be a Vulpera for your bank ult, stuff like that, for bigger bags, etc. If you're Alliance, you can take advantage of the Mechanomes for the ability to basically be a portable anvil or forge. I would say maybe take a look at that. Now, of course, the Mechanome is an allied race, but at the end of the day, the base races don't really mean much. Same with class, any sort of crafter can be any sort of class, so I wouldn't worry about it that much. Just play what you want to play. Alright, so we got 2 little fun questions that we're just going to call this a lightning bonus round. So we have a question from Zanzerful asking about my favorite Italian dish. Now this is actually a pretty good question. You know what? It made me think. And I don't know if this is cheating, but the first thing that of course came to mind is pizza. Now that is pretty boring, so I guess I would say if I can't have pizza, then, just a good pasta dish. I mean, I'm pretty basic, I'm sorry Zan, but definitely my number 1 choice would be pizza or some good pasta. Then we have a question from Drizzling Rose, and she asks my very first gaming memory, or what got you into gaming as a hobby. Now, I think I have a different answer for each part of that question, but I think whenever I really, really figured out that I really liked, playing video games, which was probably whenever I first got a PC. Before I actually got a computer, I had a DS, my brother had an Xbox, a PlayStation 2, all that sort of thing, so we always had kind of, consoles besides a PC, and I would play games every once in a while on them, but I wasn't super, I guess I should say, addicted or really enamored with it, until finally I actually got a computer, and it was this really old desktop that my parent brought home from work. But right when we kind of got that computer, my cousin at the time, who was babysitting me and my brother, he, would come over and he would log in to RuneScape. And so we were like, whoa, what is this? And so we started playing RuneScape, and of course, somebody would be, actually moving the character and doing stuff, and the other 2 people would be sitting around, telling each other what to do, what we should go explore, stuff like that. And thinking back at it, it was really funny because, my brother and my cousin would go out and kind of do quest and all of that, and I would sit in the main town and cut down, lumber and stuff, and I would sit at the bank and sell items, which, I guess I shouldn't be surprised that I'm a gold maker today, but that was really, really fun. And moving on, a few months later or whatever, Minecraft came out, which of course, Minecraft is not that old of a game, but it was 2010, and so, of course, my cousin at the time, because he's older than us, he, came over and was like, hey, we got this new game, and it was at the point in time where Minecraft was played just in like the Minecraft.net browser. Like you didn't actually have to download it because our computers couldn't handle that. But because my brother and I would argue so much over like, we want to play, he would basically make us go and, do chores or go do some push-ups or sit-ups, go do some physical activity type of stuff, and then whatever we would do, we would get like 30 minutes of playtime. So I think that is my very first like in awe moment, like, oh my goodness, I really like playing video games. I don't know if that makes any sense, but definitely RuneScape and then Minecraft kind of got me into PC gaming, and then of course that soon, very, very soon, evolved into WoW. But I would say that is probably my first, realization that I really enjoy video games was whenever I discovered RuneScape and Minecraft. Alright, now we have the last section of this video. We got about 4 more questions, and these are kind of questions that are just involving, the channel, personal thoughts, stuff like that. These are kind of random, but here we go. Starting off, we have Rain, who asks, I understand gold making can be its own reward, but aside from the sheer challenge of earning gold, are there things that you look forward to obtaining eventually? Any mounts, pets, black market stuff, discontinued items, etc. And I think I have a very boring answer to this, which is I don't really have a goal at the moment. A lot of people, want the Spectral Tiger, they want the Brutosaur if they missed out in BFA, they want, to collect their mount collection or complete their mount collection, they want to complete pets, etc. But I'm not a huge collector. Of course, I started gold making by the fact that I wanted to be able to play for free, so of course, my kind of gold, or what I'm gonna obtain eventually, I guess, is the Dragonflight expansion. Of course, I've bought like the Call of Duty games with gold. I haven't done it recently, but Hearthstone packs you could do. Like, if I ever wanted getting like Overwatch loot boxes or something, I can. So I guess that's really kind of the only sort of thing that I work towards. But in general, like, most of my gold making, kind of like you said, is like just the challenge of earning gold, and like the process is what I really enjoy. So I'm pretty boring. I just kind of like to stockpile my gold because I don't really have any sort of use for it. I mean, if a Spectral Tiger comes up and they're like, hey, do you want it? If I can afford it, then hey, maybe I'll buy it. But, I'm not really currently trying to work towards anything. And at the moment, I'm just kind of enjoying the process. You also ask, is it hard to make any luxury purchases knowing it reduces the overall like gold amount? And I definitely feel that to this day. I remember I talked a while back in one of my first kind of beginner videos, I talked about the urge to like hoard gold instead of invest it or reinvest it into gold making. And I think a lot of people kind of felt the same way. Like they feel like they always want to hoard the amount of gold they have, etc. And, it's nice to be safe with your gold, but also if you just let it sit there in your inventory, you're just kind of limiting yourself in what you can do. So I think as somebody who has a pretty good amount of gold, I definitely still find it hard to invest. I think it's just because, that fear of accidentally losing it or going bankrupt. I think in general, it is pretty hard to spend my gold. I mean, I remember back in BFA, I had 5 million gold, and I was like, do I even want to buy this Brutosaur? Like, is it really going to be worth the 5 million? I'm going to drop back down to like 500k. I'll have to start all over. Is it even worth it? And I remember, like, I almost did not purchase it. Of course, I did, and I'm very, very grateful for that, but there was a point in time where I might have just willingly, gave up on the Bruto, which I would be very mad if I did. But, yeah, that is my answer to that question. And David basically asked the same question, and I've kind of accidentally already answered it, but he asks, what is your motivation to be a gold maker? Do you want to play for free, buy out black market auction house, stuff like that? So, yeah, I mean, my motivation is really just the process. Like, I enjoy, figuring out, profits versus cost, figuring out different new methods, leveling up, different recipes and getting new reputations, stuff like that. I really just enjoy the process. I don't really have an end goal at the moment. Then we have Ian, and this is more related to my specific channel, but Ian asks, I would love to see a video on hidden vendors or recipe drops / locations, in my case specifically for a few professions. Nothing old world, only current content. You have, and many others have old world content taken pretty good care of. So I would say this is a pretty hard question, Ian. There's, to be honest, not a ton of hidden vendors recipes in current content. I think it really depends on your version of hidden. For example, you have tailoring on your list, and the Shadowlands cloak, which is just the blue version of the current cape, is actually locked behind reputation. You need honored with Maldraxxus, and not a lot of people recognize that or know that. So I'm not exactly sure if that's what you mean by hidden. Same thing goes with the heavy armor kits from leatherworking. Alchemy doesn't really have much, blacksmithing doesn't really have much. There's a few cosmetic items that you can get. Cooking, you have the feast, but you need to be revered with the Ravendreth people. So I definitely will look into if there's any certain hidden vendors forever, there's gray items that are useful, stuff like that. But in general, I don't think there's really anything hidden. If you're looking for recipe drops, I would just recommend going into your profession menu and going to the Unlearn tab, and it will tell you, what you're missing, and that might give you some locations and some help. And lastly, our final question is by Tronic, and he asks, will you be doing any classic TBC, Wrath, or future old expansion guides for gold making once, you're done with retail, stuff like that? And I've actually been asked this question quite a few times, and sadly, my answer is most likely not. As you know, I make gold making videos based on what I actually do in a game, whether that's my routine, gold making tips that I have, things I've been selling, and I am just not a classic player. I attempted classic when it first came out. I think I made it to level 11 or 12 or something along those lines, and I just never went back. I don't have that nostalgic feeling of classic because I didn't play until Cataclysm, and classic is hard. It takes a while to level, stuff like that, and I really just don't have the motivation to play that expansion. TBC, same goes with Wrath. So most likely you will not see probably any non-retail content. However, of course, I will be making videos about Dragonflight, but yet again, that's retail. So any sort of classic gold making guides you probably will not see. Now, of course, I do talk about old world in the form of retail, but in terms of going back to classic, Wrath classic, TBC classic, probably you will not see it on this channel. So I apologize for that, but I just know nothing about that specific topic. And there we go. We have officially answered all of the questions, and thank you so much if you have gotten this far into the video. I truly do appreciate it. Now, I do apologize for this video being longer than normal, but hopefully you found at least a few of these questions interesting. Of course, if you want to be featured in the next monthly Q&A, feel free to join the Discord and be updated to whenever I'm doing another one, or feel free to drop your questions, in the comments down below, and I'll make sure to include them in the next. But thank you guys so much for watching, and have a great day.